You are listening to Spotlight Sessions with Justin Bamforth. The program provides an inside look at the creative field through exclusive conversations with industry professionals. Every episode is recorded live each month in the Adobe Creative Career Discord. Check out the show links to learn more and join for free. This episode was previously recorded before a live listening audience. Today, we're diving into what it takes to build a studio, build a brand, and build a career you control. My guest is someone who embodies just that and what it means to build your own path instead of waiting for permission. Barry Darnell is the founder, CEO, and executive creative director of Analogue, a multidisciplinary creative studio over in the UK, a tiny city in Leeds to be exact. But the bulk of Analogue's work has been for clients in America, and Barry has been at the forefront of it all, steering its success for 2 decades. Now, under his leadership, Analogue has developed its signature, seriously playful approach, producing iconic work for global giants like Netflix, Coca-Cola, Mattel, and Warner Brothers. But Barry isn't just a studio leader, he's also an entrepreneur. In fact, he's launched his own successful drink brands, including And Soda and Kokoro Gin, mixing a passion for creativity with culture. You see, Barry believes that creative folk should drive their own destiny, not someday, but starting now. And right now, we have him right here on Spotlight Sessions. Barry Darnell, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for the intro. That was some welcome. So thank you very much for that. And it's great to be here. It's great to have you all with us as well. So very much looking forward to, spending an hour with you. Happy to answer any questions, talk you through my journey. And let's hopefully have some fun as well and make it enjoyable for you guys spending an hour with me. So
there we go. Now, folks, we are quite honored because Barry just doesn't do speaking engagements. He lets his work do the talking. And from my understanding, this is your first. Is that right?
Yeah, I think on the drink side, I've maybe done 1 or 2, but I think as a design studio, this is pretty much my first, podcast, whatever you want to call it, webinar, whatever title it gets. But I think this is pretty much one of the first in nearly 20 years. So
awesome. Well, hey, look, next year, Analogue will be celebrating its 20th anniversary, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And your team is what, 20 people now?
Yeah, 20. We just made another hire that starts in January. So we're actually 21 come January.
Interesting. So you hire a new person every year, huh?
Well, yeah, it kind of works out that way. But I think that's what it takes to find, steady, slow and steady, but finding the right people is equally as important. So it's just worked out that way, I think.
Well, let's start at the beginning, because you didn't wait for permission to kickstart your creative career. In fact, you hopped right into the driver's seat, you hit the gas, and you started up Analogue. What was it, just 18 months into your career?
Yep, that's correct. So my story, I did a degree in graphic design. I've done in England, we call it a BTEC. So that's like 2 years foundation, 3 years degree. So 5 years in education. And during that time, I was prolific. I was DJing. So I was designing flyers for clubs. I was like getting out there doing work. So again, like not waiting for permission. I felt like I could design. So I was designing. And after I worked at a studio for about 18 months, and I just found that hanging out in record stores and meeting people, there was a demand for creative work, and I was lucky that enough demand meant that I could step out on my own and just give this thing a go. And like you say, 20 years later, I'm still here, still plugging away. It still feels like it's day one sometimes. So,
what was the reason behind starting up Analogue?
I think it was just a drive to do things my way. I think I've always been I've kind of had my own path. I've always just, didn't follow the crowds, did my own thing. And I just felt that I could have a go at doing it my way. That's in all honesty, that's the truth of the situation. And like I say, just being out in the wild though, like being out, meeting people, being social meant that I made connections. And as you say, your network's your net worth. So that's a really big thing, like actually meeting people. Without that, it just wouldn't have been possible.
I love that. Your network is your net worth. That is really interesting. Doing it your way. Did you get that from Frank Sinatra or?
Yeah, maybe borrowed it. Maybe subliminally stole it somewhere along the line. Yeah.
Well, we have a special surprise for you, Barry. This is a karaoke session, so feel free to. No, just kidding. We know about the success when a company is, is really popular, but we don't necessarily know those stepping stones. You started with just yourself. You didn't focus on pulling a team together. But at what point did you realize you needed to start hiring people and pulling people in?
At that point, it was workload. It was just this. It was literally like I could see opportunity, and I thought if I could find the right people to come on the journey with me, it could be quite exciting. And those people, like my first two hires, they did 5 years. They departed for 5 years, went to other studios, kind of learnt different crafts, and they both came back, and they've been with me ever since after it. All in, we're talking, minus 5 years. They've been with me on the whole journey. So they're still there today, still there. So we've got a crew, and that happens a lot with my team as well. Like, people move on maybe for other reasons. Maybe they want to they're moving to a different city, or life circumstances change, or things like that. But we've had a ton of people come back as well. So it's quite nice that you build something that people still want to come back to.
When you launched Analog, what were some of the biggest mistakes you made early on, and what did that teach you?
That is a great question. I pondered this before, and in full transparency, I've never made massive mistakes because of the process, the approach, the kind of like slowly. I've never gone like I've never put all my chips on red or black or gambled on anything. It's always been kind of very systematically approached. So I mean, I tell you what, maybe not hiring client services earlier, maybe one of those things. I kind of did, as well as design, I was managing all that kind of side of the business. And now I have people in that role. You realize that what value they bring, and that it frees me up to be doing other things in the business. So maybe that's a lesson I've learned over time. But in all honesty, we didn't ever make any, like, we these mega mistakes. I don't know, you maybe get the wrong studio, or you hire the wrong people. It's been, fortunately, touch wood, slow and steady, and yeah, not a lot of massive bumps in the road.
Some of the projects that Analog has been involved with recently, just to paint the picture for the audience who may not be familiar.
A lot of our work revolves around working for studios, so Netflix, so Stranger Things season 5, we worked on that about a year and a half ago. What else? Warner Brothers, we do a ton of different projects for them, working on things like Supergirl, the movie that's going to come out. What's newer stuff that might already be out? I'm just trying to think Wicked. We did a lot of work with the team at Universal on Wicked Part 2, which is just in the cinemas right now. For Mattel, we've rebranded Polly Pocket recently, which is a toy from the noughties, sort of 90s noughties, that we've just kind of rebranded for them. And we're doing a ton of work for them with some of their other properties that I can't speak about just at the moment, but we've got like three rebrand projects on for them at the moment. Which I think Coca-Cola, massive client of ours. We work in the area we work in as a studio. It's like it's called consumer products or licensing. We do a lot of the illustrations. We do basically, the easiest way to explain it is there's a show, or there's an IP, there's a movie. There's a movie is on screen, but how do you take it on screen, from on screen to retail to the consumer? So what are the additional touch points, like like retail store design, packaging. We do the illustration. So if you were to go and buy some sort of merchandise, might be clothing, might be hard, like I don't know, mugs or whatever. Like, we create a lot of the kind of assets. So it's like a brand guidelines basically, but they call it a style guide. Oh, so that's the kind of work we do, and that's how we've managed to get in. And then for like a Coca-Cola, we've been doing that for 7 years, and now we've actually switched to, as well as doing that, we're working for their North American brand team, and just about to start a job for global, which is amazing. Which is it's kind of like continually stepping up the ladder. Like I say, sometimes it feels like day one all over again. So
I remember as a kid hearing that catchy commercial for Polly Pocket on TV.
yeah. I mean, it's so iconic. I mean, it's such an iconic kids, it's such a great kids brand. It's actually back on shelf now already. That's actually out now, so you can go and see it out on, Walmart or Target or wherever, if you're in the UK, Smiths, or yeah, that's out in the wild now, which is great. So it's so nice to get asked to. And the thing is, for me, the reason we do that work is because of my obsession with toys as well. So the whole thing around Seriously Playful, it's kind of like not just something we say. It's kind of like my whole background, my it's kind of my upbringing. Basically, I'm sat in a room here in my studio in my house, surrounded by, I've got cabinets full of thousands of toys, and that's by my love of toys and like building a connection there. So in the early days, like I mentioned, it was DJ, it was music, it was bars, it was restaurants, it was spirit brands. And by curating toy shows and putting on events, people took notice and asked us, could we be involved in projects? And that snowballed and snowballed and snowballed to the point where we work on these things. And that's how we've managed to build connections with like a Netflix or a Mattel or a Warner Brothers or a Hasbro.
Let's talk about that seriously playful approach because that's at the forefront of what Analog stands for. In fact, that phrase, seriously playful, is actually trademarked, right?
Yeah,
That's serious and playful, naturally. But what does that phrase actually look like in practice?
that is a great question as well. I think for me, it's so over the years, it's kind of the thing that people have always commented on our work. They always we don't have a house style. We have a feeling, like our work has a feeling. And whenever people comment on Instagram or say work, they'll always say that they love the playful nature of it. And I think it's just been something that's been inherent to us. It's how we approach projects, and it's also the type of work we get asked to do. So when we were approaching, like, again, refresh of the brand, we worked on, working around proposition, who we are, what we stand for, what we're about. And we talked about many things. And one of the things I said, yeah, we are playful, but we're also serious. Because for me, the commerciality of running a business and delivering a project, like as a graphic designer, if you are commercial, and it's this yin and yang of like, you have to be commercial, but you don't live in a commercial world. You want to be playful, but you don't want to be a room full of clowns or students. You want to be you want to be. It has to be, for me personally, both those things. And it was something I felt like I'd live and die by. It's something we do every day, so we just wanted to amplify it. And now it guides us in many ways. It guides like the type of projects we take on when we're interviewing people. It's the lens we look through to see if are they going to fit into the culture of Analog. Um, yeah, and it's something, clients usually call it do the analog thing. They maybe don't understand it, but it's there. It's inherent, and it's something that's felt when people work with us.
How do you build a culture where people feel confident enough to play and pitch bold ideas, even if, say, they're a junior or an apprentice?
I mean, I think the thing is as well, like I think everybody's opinion's valid because everybody comes from a different place. It's not a case of just, oh, I'm senior designer, so I get, it's my way or the highway. Like, we just took a junior on recently, and he's got fantastic ideas. He comes with freshness as well. He comes with, you know, a, a supercharged enthusiasm that, over as we get older and down the line, you need that. You need people. So I think it's there's no right and wrong, especially in the early stages. I think there's having spaces to kind of play in the early stages is where it's most valuable. Obviously, as you move further down a project, I guess it flips a bit more into the serious side where refinements and development and deliverables. But in the early stage, like nothing's off limits. Everybody can contribute, and everybody's opinion is equally as valid, I would say.
So we have a question from our one of our moderators here, Hype Dragon, in the chat, who asks, "Does the playroom section on your site feature things that Analog has actually created, or is it more of like an inspirational gallery of stuff that you're sharing to kind of like motivate people?"
No, that's a great question. No, it's all R&D. That's everything that we do in house. The playroom's a place where our guys can share whatever they want. It's not restricted. Because obviously, yeah, with your portfolio and things like that, you have to, edit down, because what you show is what you get. But the playroom is a space where people can do experiments, whatever they're working on. Sometimes it's behind the scenes, and we just upload it to there. And for us as well, it gives a nice side where some things are quite polished in portfolio, but also sometimes the client's not looking for that, looking for the more experimentation, they're looking for that like the weird and wonderful. So that's basically our space where we can do that. But yeah, it's all analog. Everything on there is done by us.
Because I'm a big comic fan, I have to ask because you brought up Supergirl. That movie's coming out. That's right. There's not much known about it. What can you talk about that project, if anything?
I mean, It's so hard. I can't. I really can't say anything because obviously the amount of contracts, the amount of like the insurance we need to even work with these companies, the liability, the public liability, and we just really can't say anything other than it's coming, it's happening. I mean, it's great for us because we get to see usually about we work about 12 to 18 months out normally on something because we're working on the films being made here, but they need the other things like the retail things, the toy packaging, the assets for marketing. So we usually get early looks. And the thing is with some of these things, we're working on we're working on all sorts of stuff at the moment. And quite often the script will change. So you've done a ton of work and then they go, oh yeah, that thing that was happening over there. Yeah, that's not happening anymore. Like it's now doing this, and you're like, oh, okay, back to the drawing board then. So unfortunately, I can't say too much. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Well, on that note, I mean, do they give you like a rough draft of the script to just to get an idea if you request it, or how does that
Yeah,
work?
yeah. So we're working on what are we doing? The new Hunger Games movie at the moment. So we have full access to like the script for that, which is great. And then you'll see early production visuals. So I mean, so when we worked on the last Jurassic Park, not the last one, the one before that Jurassic Park movie. I mean, the visuals that you get sent through the concept art for these movies is just mind blowing, like absolutely like breathtaking stuff. So you get access to some of that, and then as you get further down the line, so sometimes you'll be working with no, like you don't have any photos of the actors or actresses, so you basically a little bit working in the dark, and then as you get more towards the end of the project and you start taking the press promo photos and things like that, you get access to more to more things to work with. But yes, it's a funny process, but because we've been doing it so long, we kind of know. I guess another example is if you're working on like a Transformers movie that's all CGI, like they might change the CGI at like the 11th hour, which is weird for us because we've already finished about 12 months ago. So it's an interesting world to work in.
All right, another question came in from Ashna Mali in the chat here, who is really impressed by the playroom on your website. But are there any thoughts on like junior designers sharing their R&D work, or even like the rejected designs on their personal portfolio? How should they organize that or display it?
I think having a space for it that's just having it separated out. I think for me personally, because I think with junior designers or people looking for jobs, like it depends who you are in Fortran. Like if you're somebody who's got one set style, then like amplifying that style if you want to become an illustrator. I think if that's what you want to do, that once your thing that you do, you want to do it for somebody else, then having like a portfolio that feels a lot more coherent is the way to go. If you want to be a multiple discipline designer, I think having a good mix. So I land on your portfolio page and I'm like, okay, cool, I can see you do branding, I can see you do a bit of illustration, I can see you do a bit of motion. I think having a mix is helpful there. Experimental stuff, I would say, unless it's amplifying the story you're trying to tell in your portfolio, I would probably keep it separate or have it on your Instagram or have it somewhere else. Because you've got to imagine, if I was looking and I landed on your website, I'm probably not going to be there for very long. I'm going to want to understand you quite quickly. Like, so if your thing is experimental and that's what you want to be known for, having a website that amplifies that, again, great. I think it's horses for courses. It's as I mentioned before, like what you show is what you get very often. So, people come to Analog and say, "Oh, I get an email saying, oh, I really love your work. I like you've done this. I like you've done that. I think I'd be a good fit." And I go to their website, and it doesn't look anything like our work, or doesn't even look remotely, like remotely in our world. And I think managing that and building what you want to put out into the world. So again, if it's experimental, mix it in. Make it part of your language.
What are some of the things people might not realize about working for an agency or working for a studio?
What, as a junior coming in?
Hmm.
I think that's a great question. I guess it's dependent on how much exposure you've already had. If you've not had a job at all, for instance, like we have people come in and do a couple of weeks with us, and they're like, "Wow, I've learned more in 2 weeks than I've just learned in 3 years at university." So I think especially in England, I'm not sure where all the visitors are from. So I think in England, like it's quite if you're a student, you've just done university, I would say it's a very sheltered experience. If you've not been then doing work experience somewhere, or you've not been working on the side or managing your own clients to kind of get an idea of how the actual system works, I think it's a very sheltered a very sheltered education that definitely needs adjustment, I would say. So it's a hard one because I guess it's the point you're coming from. But I think it's just the realization of how fast things move, how many jobs people are juggling, how much stuff is going on around you. Like I think when you're a student, you're kind of like doing one thing in isolation, but in a studio, like say there's 20 of us, it's like busy. There's lots of things. Like I think we have 50 projects on at once, roughly. If we look down our list, we have like 50 different jobs, not all happening at the same time because things ebb and flow, things come and go. And some of those projects might be a year long, some might be 3 days or a day or something like that. But I think it's just understanding that kind of pace, um, the environment, the noise, and yeah, the buzz. I guess the buzz of being in a studio as well is it's what we all want as designers, where we want gratification, we want to kind of to feel a part of something. So I think there's that as well. You get that when you're in a studio, as opposed to being freelance or a student.
So this question comes in from Amy, aka Rose, who is actually based in London, a multidisciplinary designer. She asks, "How much does a good portfolio matter to you during the hiring process for somebody who is a junior midweight, as opposed to knowing the person already through networking and referrals?"
Um, I think it's really important, especially if you've already got work somewhere else. I think for me it's a 50-50. It's obviously the portfolio gets you through the door. Like having a great portfolio, I see emails all the time, and I always click on them and I always look at the stuff. And if something catches my eye, a great portfolio, I will share it with the rest of the team. And and even if it's not immediate, it's like, oh, this is great that this work's come in. It's really exciting. So I think it's massively important. But the other flip side of it is personality. Like, so a portfolio will get you an interview. Personality for me will get you the job.
For those in the audience who may be unfamiliar with working for an agency, can you explain what like the pitch session or the RFP process looks like when you're trying to land a client? And is there any unique way that Analog goes about that?
That's a really interesting question, because I guess there's lots of agencies out there who spend days and weeks pitching, but we just don't. We just like it's not that we're not this like hardcore, like we don't pitch agency that you see people tout around. It's just we've kind of worked a reputation up where people come to us and ask for work. So if for us it's normally more of a proposal rather than a pitch. It's like they come to us with a project, not like this is a project with we're tendering out to 5 studios. You're one of the 5 studios. um you know May the best man win sort of scenario. We don't really get that very often, which in some ways I guess it might be quite nice when you do win the pitches, but also that's how businesses fail, because they lose 4 or 5 pitches in a row and they've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into each of those pitches. And we, as an agency, what we normally get is like, hey, there's a new movie, there's a new show, there's a new thing happening. Look, this is the deliverables. Can you put a proposal together? Which for us mainly is actually quoting the job. It's actually just, pulling some numbers together, asking some questions, understanding the job, putting that in. And if the numbers work, they work. And if they don't work, usually we just kind of figure it out between us and we get the job. So I would say we're in a unique position that we don't, it's not that we choose not to pitch. It's that we actually, our clients don't generally ask for it because we've got such a good relationship with them.
Early on, before you had developed that good relationship, like how were you creating these relationships with these people?
As I mentioned with the toy shows earlier on, if we're talking about the kind of the previous evolution, Analog was a very like early days, was like I said, bars and restaurants, and a lot of spirit brands and alcohol. That's how I kind of got into releasing my own spirit brands. But in the last 10 years, the kind of more the entertainment side of the jobs, I'd curated a toy exhibition where Nickelodeon had seen it. They put us in a portfolio, and a job came along. They reached into this portfolio when they pulled us as a wild card, and we did the job. We won the pitch, so we did actually pitch on that one, paid pitch, and that was kind of the snowball then. So Nickelodeon's the same company Paramount as MTV, so we went from Paramount into MTV. Now we've got two clients in this kind of space, and it's quite a unique space that we work in, where there's not, for instance, a branding project. How many agencies out there could do a branding project? 100,000, I don't know, but in the sector we live in, it's kind of quite small. So we were very fortunate that we could go, hey, we've done this for Nickelodeon, we've done this for MTV. Is an opportunity to do it for you guys, show it the portfolio. And it's basically the strength of the portfolio that then got us the next one. And then you get the Universal, and then you can show it to the Warner Brothers or Mattel and things like that. So it was basically, and then along the way you meet people who become, I mean, this for me is probably one of my biggest tips. Like, try and find people who are super connectors, people who have got a great network, who can help you then expand into different reach. Like, they do exist out there, people who've got a lot of contacts. Very hard to find, but they are worth their weight in gold, because I mean, there's quite a lot of agencies who use somebody like that to, might be well connected to drive introductions and things. But yeah, it kind of happened like that.
Going back to the portfolio stuff, this question comes in from my producer Catherine, who asks, "How do you choose which projects to highlight in your portfolio or on your website, especially after you have acquired so many different projects? How do you narrow it down to showcasing the best ones?"
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not lying when I say this, but near enough all of our work does go on the website. But if you there, we work on so many great projects. Some of the things we don't show, but nearly all of it does go on the website. And what I would say is, like I mentioned earlier on, like, what you show is generally what you get, because people, they want to see, like, for instance, if you want to work in property development, design for buildings and property developers, if you don't have any of that on your website, and people come to that website you speak to them, you say, oh yeah, here's a website, go and check it out, and there's none of that work on there, that leap is going to be a big leap of faith. So what you show is what you get. That's what so yes, we show the kind of like the bigger projects there, but also if we've done a massive project that wasn't kind of quite in our wheelhouse, where we did it for, maybe because there's a multitude of reasons why we took it on. Generally nowadays we wouldn't, but we might have taken it on, and we choose not to show it because we're not looking for more of that work, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say build stuff that shows stuff that you want to do more of. So if you want to be focused on branding, you need, put all your branding projects on. It's quite basic things, but yeah, that's my honest answer.
Another question from Ashna Mali here in the audience: how much time do you spend researching and putting together that creative brief, as opposed to actually creating the project, or does it all kind of just come together simultaneously?
No, it's a really great question, and I think that it all depends on how prepared the client is. So sometimes a client, like when you're working with a Coca-Cola, they might have paid a research agency to put a massive 100-page document together for that brand, or a humongous amount of work that is then given to us as the starting point. Other times, because we work in an area where obviously it is illustration and it's design, it's sometimes stylistic. So for us, it would be, if it's not a hardcore brief like research, it might be mood boards. It might be like the client either gives us mood boards or they don't. So the first point for us would be to do the mood boards. And I think this is a big thing with all design projects, like, get on the same page as fast as possible. So whether that's written research or it's visual research, I would say quite often we do the visual research, and then getting on a page as quickly as possible eliminates all the kind of like, the pitfalls where you could start designing and start, spending hours and hours designing something that the client doesn't like. So what our process would normally be to ask the client if they got a mood board, and even if they do have one, we would maybe then go, okay, you're showing us this, so we're going to show you this, and then kind of agree what we're visually going to do, like what the deliverables are of the projects. And we do like a small test piece. We'll do like a small exploration around this kind of like visual look, and then show it to the client. And then, there might be a few rounds of tweaks and amends on that. And then we can move, once it's kind of like we're all feeling good about it, we can move on to the next stage, which is like developing it further. Not everything, but kind of like taking the client on a journey and taking us on a journey as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Now, do you have like a creative mantra or a manifesto that you try to keep at the heart of everything you work on?
That's a good one. I actually wrote a new manifesto like yesterday.
Really?
Something, yeah, yesterday, yeah, something we've been working on. I've done 10 steps. I don't actually have it in front of me. I mean, I could probably pull it up and, but we've wrote 10 steps that actually, really, really important to us. And we've refocused on our vision and our mission and our manifesto as well. So I haven't actually pitched it back and presented it to the team yet. So it's very early days, but sometimes it's just consolidation. I think because we've been doing it so long, we kind of know it, it lives in the ether, but I actually think it's really, really important to actually write it down and communicate it so the whole team feels like we're all pulling in the same direction. So that's something I've actually been working on for the last few days. So we do, and it's like it's a 10 points basically that are, you know, the analog commandments, let's say.
Oh, I like that. But let's talk about your previous manifesto because I think you had mentioned it to me earlier. The energy matters one.
I mean, that was what, yeah, I mean, that was in, that was in one of our earlier manifestos. Yeah. Yeah, I think energy matters. That's I think that's like in every aspect of life, isn't it? What you bring, the energy you bring to whatever you're doing is going to dictate the outcome. If you wake up in a bad mood or you wake up in a good mood, it basically flips the day. So I think energy does really matter, and um, especially when you're trying to get a job, or trying to find the foot on the design ladder. There's going to be days when it's tough. There's going to be days when it's hard, but keeping momentum, keeping consistency, keeping good energy is actually humongously important.
Obviously, to succeed in this industry, it takes skill, but beyond skill is also a little bit of luck to be in the right place at the right time. Perhaps some might, look at that as destiny or density, as George McFly said in Back to the Future.
Mhm.
But let's get metaphysical for a minute. Do you believe in manifesting, or do you think great opportunities come about just because of sheer luck?
That's a great, very, very good question. I'm a firm believer in you've got to put yourself in the position to make your own luck. I think like if you sit in your room all day on your own and expect somebody to deliver something to you, it's never going to happen. Like I mentioned before, my things all came about from curating art exhibitions, from DJing, from hanging out in record shops, from being out there. And obviously today, back then it wasn't online; it was in person all the time. It wasn't an online thing, but you can do it online or you could do it in person. But if you know where, you know where. If you've got to be out there, you've got to be in a position, you've got to be actively doing things to make luck happen. That's my honest thoughts.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Some of the advice that I've given to maybe even some of you in the audience is, you have to take the initiative. You can't just sit around by your phone all day waiting for someone to call if they don't know your phone number. You have to connect with people, go network. Networking is just as important as your actual work. I mean, some of the greatest opportunities I've received and that Barry has received as well as he's been talking about tonight have come as a result of connecting with people. And, sometimes it does get frustrating for job seekers, especially as they get rejected at seemingly every turn. Even if they know that they're cut out for a position, yet they still get rejected for. How do you stay positive? How do you maintain that positive energy in that kind of climate?
I mean, that's a really good question. I think there's another point there as well, like when I mentioned about the toy shows, that at the time when I was doing those things, I felt like I was neglecting analog. I didn't understand the value of what I was doing at the time. I enjoyed it and it was like a passion. So I was following my passions and dreams and like doing what I wanted to do. But like there was a flip side of me that was kind of like, oh, I'm neglecting the day to day, the business. But in hindsight, when you step back and you look at those things, you actually realize that the stuff that I did around my business was equally to, or if not more important than what I did in my business. So there's a little bit of that as well. There's I've lost the train of thought in terms of the question you asked me, but I guess positivity, staying positive. So sorry, yeah. So I guess if you're doing something you really enjoy doing, like trying, like, for me, it's been toys. It's like when I was when I was super young, I had Star Wars on Betamax. I watched it over 1,000 times. It warped my mind. Without that, I would probably not be a graphic designer. I probably would not. I don't even know really why toy packaging is such a big part of my life. But I never thought, who designs toy packaging? I never like stopped to consider or read the back of a toy box. I just kind of like, it's just in me. And then through that love, then branched out into me actually getting to work on those areas. So what I'm trying to say is, yeah, on the days that you're down, if you love drawing and you want to be an illustrator, you know, the more you do, the greater your chances are going to be. So on those tough days, or maybe just take a break for a day. Don't beat yourself up. Don't like. Sometimes it doesn't happen like that, and opportunity strikes when you're not expecting it. So I think if you're doing the right things and you're also doing it for the right reasons, things that you truly believe in, and that you would I would do what I do if somebody wasn't even paying me. So, I'm really fortunate that, basically like Peter Pan syndrome, I don't have to grow up. But it must be tough. And like, the world back then was a different world that when I was starting out, a massive different world. Like when I had my first job, there was one Mac in the corner that had the internet on it. It was like we used to like send files by motorbike. So it's a different world that we live in today. And there's so much noise. There's so much going on all the time. There's so many things pinging. There's so many different ways to chat and connect to people. It must be much tougher these days. So I think maybe turning off some of those things, getting outside, human interaction, meeting people. And on the days it's not working, don't kill yourself. Don't beat yourself up about it. Like, just take a breath and find, find the energy to go again. And, if it's something you really want to do, it will work. It will find its way. I believe in that.
Speaking of meeting people in person, are there any events or organizations or just meeting places that you're aware of, maybe around the UK or in London, where young creative can kind of plug themselves into and just connect with people?
I mean, that's a really good question. As you mentioned right at the start, I kind of live in my own little bubble where I don't really talk online, and in terms of like going out as much as I am, like not doing podcasts and stuff. So I actually I'm not as well connected these days. Obviously Adobe do a great job of it. I've been to a number of their events recently. They've been absolutely brilliant. There are like things like the DBA, the Design Business Association, that maybe throws events as well. And then there's I think there's a night called Creative Process. And there are a few good like regional nights that people do put on. There's a couple in Leeds and over in Manchester that put on, but I think you can find them. If you want to find them, you'll find them. There is stuff happening. I don't know of I don't know of like one specific thing. There's one called Glug down in Brighton. I think there's stuff going on all the time everywhere. I mean, if you're in London, you're spoiled as well, because there's endless galleries, there's endless opening parties, there's endless things that are going on. It's a little bit tougher for us up in the cold north of England, but yeah, I think if you're in London, there's a lot of opportunity to be out.
Well, going back to being active on social media and digital platforms, do you think it's better to be active on Instagram or LinkedIn, as a designer, to get more opportunities? Rose is kind of contemplating this because she's not sure where to direct her energy to.
Right. That's a really, really good question. So this is what my take on it is. Obviously, people might have different ones. I think Instagram's great for portfolio because it's somewhere you can send people as a link. If you've got a website, or if you've got like, it's generally somewhere where they will go to look at your work. But I feel that as a designer, you're probably speaking to other designers on Instagram. You're probably talking to your peers. When we see people who, the metrics and things, it's generally people who like design. Whereas LinkedIn, I think it's obviously a different type of conversation, more business focused. Again, that's changed over the years, but I think that's the place where you can have actual conversations about work. Personally, I mean, I'm sure there's people out in here or people who listen back to this who've got work from Instagram, and we have as well. We've got some work from it. But for me, having a profile on LinkedIn, when you come to, if you're freelancing, or even if you want to, you're looking for a job as well, I think it's important to have a LinkedIn profile. So um, I would say Instagram for like your actual portfolio profile. I mean, I've been using Behance as well recently for I've just reached out to a designer in Colombia who's going to work on me with a project for a project that I'd found on there as well. So, and in the early days, like really early days, Behance got us a lot of work, especially if you get a featured project on Behance. If you get a feature, we've had a few over the years, and like the views, the appreciation, the reach it gets is amazing.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because, we do a lot of work with Behance. We mean,
Mm,
the Adobe crew, and it's
mm,
an excellent networking tool for
it's
actually
really good.
finding gigs. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Right now, Analogue is one of our partners in the Adobe Creative Apprenticeship Program. So, talk about opportunities. What made you want Analogue to get involved in the first place?
Well, in full transparency, I think obviously we're living in a moment in a world where people talk about AI all the time, AI this, AI that, and the reality of that is there might be short-term gains when it actually finds its feet where it saves cost. But what's going to happen in like, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, when there's been no osmosis between junior talent and midweight talent and senior talent and leadership? Because for me, when I'm looking at someone to do the internship with us, I've actually struggled to find somebody because I want somebody in Leeds, ideally, because I want them to come into the studio. I don't really want somebody sat at home on their own. And then, for me personally, or the team members, it's like another job that they have to do to check in with this person, that person. Whereas if you were in the studio, you would be learning by osmosis. You would be around 20 other people in a creative space, having different conversations, hearing different conversations, being involved in like lots of little different things rather. And if you're on your own, we'd probably set you a task, you'd do the task, and then we check in on the task. But you wouldn't understand the wider implications of being in a studio. And I think that's ultimately why I wanted to get involved. I want to make sure that I think there's even at the moment there's not much senior talent available. We're always looking for senior designers because you need seniors to, they are the backbone. You can only have so many juniors and midweights, but you need a senior to manage those people. You can't, otherwise it kind of doesn't reach that level. So for me, that's the main reason I want to make sure that there's knowledge transfer down to the younger generation.
Yeah, that's great. That's one of the most important things because when we've all been there before, audience, where we're working for bosses and then we're working for leaders. And there's a big difference between the two because bosses will tell you what to do, but leaders will inspire you to do what you want to do. They will encourage you, they will help you grow. And that's part of what it takes, I think, to be a really effective senior designer or even executive leader. What has been the biggest win for you or the biggest surprise from being a part of the Adobe Creative Apprenticeship Program?
Well, it's been really interesting. So far, I've been a mentor for three people. The first one, illustrator in from America, but was studying in London, and I worked with him over the summer. So worked on a project together, and it was really inspiring. Like briefing somebody and then like seeing how they kind of approach that brief and how much effort and energy they brought to it, how much they wanted it. And then the second one was a girl, like, again, really talented, a lot of drive, a lot of passion, really, really wanted it. And she's managed to get a placement through the Adobe internship at Not Wyden and Kennedy, which is amazing. She told me the other day she's already working on a project for Nike, which she's beat me. I'm 20 years in and I still can't get on a job for Nike. So I mean that is mega. And then I just worked with somebody recently, and I've only done 3 sessions. He's actually going to come up to Leeds on Friday for his last session, but he got an opportunity at a company that makes kind of like sweets. How would you describe it? I guess in America, like toxic candies or these kind of like rotten or these kind of weird sweets and stuff like that. So I coached him on that, and yeah, he got the job.
Oh, it's amazing.
So I haven't found one for Analog. I was hoping these people might end up at Analog, but no, they They've got jobs, but I'm equally as happy that I'm really happy that they managed to find jobs, especially in the climate we're in at the moment, where it is tough. It is really tough out there. So
Yeah, it really is. To learn more about tonight's guest, Barry Darnell, you can check out his website, which I posted in the chat, or for those of you listening on demand in the show notes. And if we didn't get a chance to cover your questions, feel free to reach out to Barry directly at either his website or on LinkedIn. Now, if you are new to the Adobe Creative Career Discord, I'd like to take a moment to share one of the coolest things we're working on right now, and that would be the Adobe Creative Apprenticeship Program. This program connects aspiring creative people like you with top creative companies providing the actual training and experience that you need, which also looks amazing on a resume. Think of it like the ultimate internship meets mentorship opportunity. But wait, that's not all. You see, there is another aspect to the program, and it's called commissioned projects. This is where you can get even more experience working on an actual paid project with Adobe. Yes, that's right, Adobe as your first client. Seriously. The details on the Creative Apprenticeship Program, the commissioned projects, and more incredible career resources can all be found at behance.net/resources. That's behance.net/resources. Since we only have a few more minutes tonight with our wonderful guest, Barry Darnell, if you do have a question, please post it in the chat. Or if you're shy, just ask them directly following the show.
I also pulled up our manifesto as well, so I can definitely share the first one with you guys, which I think is quite appropriate. But yeah, if you want to do questions first, you go for it if there's any.
Let's share that new manifesto because I think that'll be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's 10 points. The first one is own your destiny. Your career is yours to shape. You only get one life. Spend it doing what makes you happy. If that future is analog, will help you become your best. If your path takes you elsewhere, we'll cheer you on. Growth, purpose, and fulfillment always come first. So, for me, that's number one. I want people who want to be analog, and I also want people to do exactly what they want to do. What I've created is kind of like a manifest, and like I say, the Peter Pan effect. I don't have to grow up. I've basically made a playground where I can kind of live in and playing, but that's not for everybody. And people experience it, and they might want to find out what the thing that it is that drives them. And I think that's so important. So important for everybody.
Yeah, it's finding that drive that just keeps you going. It's more. It's not necessarily about motivation, right? It's more about momentum.
Definitely.
What is the difference for you between motivation and momentum?
That's a really, really good question. I think, motivation gets you off your chair, doesn't it? But momentum is the thing that keeps you moving forward. I think that's probably the easiest way for me to describe it. It's great to be motivated, but if you don't do the thing that comes after the it's a process that keeps on going and going and going. So I think that's the difference for me personally.
Yeah, it's kind of like a snowball effect, right? Like you
Yeah,
start off small and then just once you hit the ground running, it just keeps going and going and going. And the hardest thing is to keep going. It's like if you just like look at like physical fitness, right? Like you get in your body in shape, you get into a routine, and then you break that routine. It's harder to get back into the routine.
absolutely. I say to with the Analogue, because I train every day, and I say that's what I say to people. Like people will come to me and I've been to the gym, and they'll go for 3 days, and then they'll stop, and I say the number one thing you can do is the thing that you can do every day. Consistency is really important in every aspect of life, like finding a job, a career, showing up consistently is what makes a difference and what gets noticed. So I'll say to people, look, if you can only walk your dog every day, just like do that thing, but do it every day. Like that, it is really important. Like again, going on a yo-yo diet for 3 days and then binge eating, it's the same. It's the same in every aspect of life. Like show up and do what you can do every day. That's how I live my life anyway. And I think it's again, it feels like a gut basic thing to do, but it really does make a different consistency.
Do you ever experience personal struggles that challenge your creative process or your creative approach?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely over the last. I think it's not burnt. I would say I'm trying to analogize this to somebody recently, and I think you have good days and bad days. You have good weeks, bad weeks, and 19 years of running a studio, like it ebbs and flows. Your energy levels ebb and flow. They do. They kind of like you know they go up and down. And I've definitely had times where it's more of a struggle to keep doing the same things every day. I think as a creative as well, we crave newness, don't we? We're like magpies. We want shiny new things all the time. Probably all of us have ADHD, and we want new stuff. And but the reality is that doesn't come very often. I always say to people, like, what really changes for me is when we get a new client, or we either move studio, we get a new client, or we get a new member of the team. They're the kind of like, I'm the consistency, I'm the constant. People can leave the agency and go and work somewhere else. They can go and do this and they go and do that, but I'm the kind of consistency. And sometimes that's difficult, but that's my job. That makes sense.
You bring up ADHD, and I know a lot of creatives uh, wrestle with that all the time. How do you keep that from becoming a hindrance to your work? Because I know you mentioned it to me that this might be an obstacle that you've been experiencing.
It's a tricky one because obviously I think like the way if the way I've mitigated is by by having lists. Basically, I've run my life off a list for all this time. So and I go back to it and I check it consistently because I don't want to miss anything. And I think it's it's a difficult one with a creative as well because some things you can get really into, can't you? You can zone out. You can get really into if you're kind of illustrating or you're doing something like that's really detailed and you're really enjoying as well. But then when jobs that are harder, I think sometimes you just got to do it. That's the thing. You've got to you just have to do the stuff that you don't want to do, and you just have to tell your brain you're gonna have to crack on and get it done because it needs doing. And I think sometimes that's easy when you've got a lot to do. Like I find my hardest days when I've got three little tasks to do. I'm like procrastinate and decide that well I could do those in 20 minutes. So I'll do them later. But if I've got 100 things to do, I kind of it's a bit easier for me to manage because I'm like I'm on it. I'm on fire. I'm like this is happening, that's happening, this is happening. And that works really, pace works really well for me. Slow days are harder for me than really intense busy days. Sometimes, you need a slow day every now and then to catch up. But I think sometimes it's that. I think maybe it's part, for me personally, maybe other people out there, when it's slower, it's really hard. When there's lots going on, you're getting like dopamine and you get little things happening all the time. And it's also distracting as well. So
Let's move on to portfolio pages again, because I think there is a part of the portfolio page that often gets overlooked by designers, and that would be the bio page or the about me section. Um, for a lot of designers who are not writers, it's difficult to write something that's catchy, that sounds amazing, sounds intriguing, but isn't just blowing smoke, right? So how does a creative go about writing a successful bio for their portfolio page?
you basically just described me. Absolutely. Like that's been the thing with Analogue for all this time. Like we've been we're a pictures studio. We're a visual agency, and that's kind of how I've always pitched it because I struggle with words as well. I really do. Like, it's an interesting one. In all honesty, for me, I don't ever really read the bios, like being full transparent. Like I think like for me personally, I'm a visual guy, so I'll go straight to the work and then what I would probably do is once I've looked at the work, if I find it interesting, I would like, okay, where are they working? Where have they worked? I would probably look at like the studios. And then the other side of it, if the work speaks to me, like I mentioned before, the first port of call would be like, right, let's get this person on a call, let's get them into the studio if they're local, let's see the whites of their eyes, let's see how they're how they speak, what they're passionate about. So I think it's so hard to communicate that in words. So I would say for me, personally, keep it short, keep it concise, keep it snappy. For me, unless you've got lots and lots to say that's valuable. Like if somebody sends me an email with a portfolio and they write like, a couple of lines, I'm going to read all those lines. If they send me like paragraph after paragraph, I'm going to, by the third line, I'm probably going to be para reading it, or I'll probably just be scrolling to the bottom of the email for the for the portfolio. I'm not saying that I can only speak for myself. Do you know what I mean? Some people might be very much more words based, but I believe we're a visual. We're a visual. Our world is visual, so I don't stress about it too much. I think it's the same with Instagram posts, right? So if you write an Instagram, you sweat over the copy, like you sweat. Oh, what is this? The perfect copy? Like you look at the thing and they swipe up. Like you look at the picture, and go, that's great. You press the like button, you swipe. Who sits there and reads like you see the one line at the top, and then you have to click on it, or like to see more and things like that. It's the same on LinkedIn. You see like the first two lines, and you have to click on it to read more. I'm sure most people don't click on it, even though you spent like 4 hours writing that copy. But that's me. That's
This is
me.
great. No, this is great. This is why I ask these questions, because there's all different creative individuals out there, and they all have different perspectives and approaches to this. So the more I can give to the audience, to the listening audience, I think the more beneficial it is. And on that
Put it this
note,
way. Sorry, put it this way. If you had great words and bad pictures, what would happen? But if you have brilliant pictures and like mediocre words, I would say you're probably winning. In graphic design, you'd still be winning.
well put, well put. All right. So let's say there is a creative out there who's listening to this broadcast, and they want to get their foot in the door, either to your
Yeah,
group or another agency through networking. How should one go about cold calling or emailing someone they really want to work for?
I would say, for me personally, emails, like, because there's so many different forms of communication. For me personally, emailing and just being concise with the email and sending the portfolio, and understanding that that agency, like we do, we're probably getting a ton of emails like that. So it's impossible. Like I would love to hire somebody to reply to everybody who sends those in, but it's just not possible. So if you don't get a reply, don't take it personally. But I would just say, it's always nice when people, like, they really do take the time to say, look, I've looked through the work, there's this project or that project, something that really stood out to me. I think with the girl I was mentoring who got the job at Wyden and Kennedy, I said, like, when you go to the interview, don't talk about what you want, what's good for you, like what you want. Ask the question, how can I be helpful? Like, what would be a successful placement for you guys? How can I add value? Like, flip it round. And I think it's the same way in lots of things in life, whether that be the email that you send to an agency. I think if you think about, if you always come, even for a client like we do, like when I ask a client, like, is how can I be valuable to you? Not like, how much can I charge you for this job? Like, I want this or we want that. I think it's, if you think about it, from that way, yeah, it's more intriguing for the employer to understand, wow, this person's really interested. They want to add value, rather than like, I'm looking for a job, I want this, I want to do that. It's just it's the way we often write, though. Even, I'm not saying I don't write like that sometimes, but I think if you can flick that switch, it does become, how it can be valuable to other people is such an underrated skill. Like you hire somebody and they'd be helpful all the time, or you've got somebody in the studios unhelpful all the time. Who's going to get the promotion? Who's going to get the better opportunities?
Yeah, no, that's great. So that's kind of how you stand out then, is you, like you said, you flip it, right? You say, yeah, how can I add value? How can I be valuable to you? Because I think a lot of times creatives, they try to put so much emphasis on standing out with their work, which is also important, don't get me wrong, but you still have to approach someone first and get them interested in clicking through to see your work.
Yeah, I think it's the same. It's like a value exchange, isn't it? If you're going to cold reach on LinkedIn and you say to somebody, this is like 101 business stuff, but you know, I do this and I do that, I do this, I do that, rather than, hey, look, I saw you posted about Polly Pocket. Look, I've got this thought around so and so. If you had 5 minutes, I could talk to you about it, or I could send you something, or like, it's a value exchange. Everything in life is a value exchange. That's just the fact. Even though you don't see it, or you don't feel it sometimes, it really is. So you can feel so much more valuable to somebody than if you to just drop them an email like, oh yeah, I want, it'd be great if I could do this, or this is our portfolio, and click on this and send it away. It's just a good way of thinking. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's going to land you a job straight away, but it's definitely a good way of thinking with multiple touch points, multiple things that happen in life.
What are some of the common sense rules that you wish every junior designer kind of followed or adhered to?
It's the common sense stuff is hard to quantify. If you were to write it down on a list of paper, on a sheet of paper, you go, yeah, but and so what? Like, you should do that anyway. It's those little things that you take for granted. I'm just trying to think of an example. I'm trying to think of an example that I could give you. Common sense stuff for a junior designer. Like I've already said, one, try and be valuable is a really good one. Bring solutions, not problems. Like, again, that's an absolute classic one. If you can, I read this thing about somebody Barack Obama had hired, and like they brought solutions to him, and he became like the most invaluable person in his staff and things like that. And it really is, it it really is it is super valuable. Just trying to think. This is another one. I'm looking through our manifesto. Respect time, like yours, others, clients. Like when you've got time booked with your CD, your creative director, to review a job, or your line manager, go with a deck. Go with go with the answer. Like, go with like the thoughts and the answers. Don't like just expect them to do it for you. Like, have respect for other people. Like, if somebody shows you how to do something, and show you once, and then they show you twice, and you show you three times, I can pretty much guarantee if you don't, by the third time, if you haven't listened and done it, they're probably never going to show you again. So little things like that, respect people's time and your own time. Like that's a massive. They're two good examples.
I'm glad that you brought up the deck stuff, because when we were working on the redesign for the Spotlight Sessions logo, that was actually one of the commission projects through Adobe. And we found an incredible designer. Her name is Eleanor Olson, and we'll actually have her on the program later on in January to talk about her process and how she worked with me to develop it. But one of the things that really impressed me from the very beginning, now this is a junior level designer. She was creating, every time we met, she would put together a pitch deck before we met, and it would outline what we were going to go over. It talked about the rationale. It was like I was in an agency, pitch pitch session. It was incredible. But that is something that, yeah, I try to share with junior designers is, don't think of yourself as a junior designer. Always strive to be better than where you're at, because if you aim for that, that's going to elevate your game. It's going to kind of like project that professionalism that is going to be far superior to your peers, your competition out there. It's going to set you apart.
I think somebody gave me a good analogy once of like, so the difference between a junior and a senior sort of designer. So if you give a junior a job and you say you've got a day on it, they'll spend a day doing that thing. If you give a senior designer the brief, they will do as many solutions to that job in the time that they're given. And I think that's a really good way of thinking about it as you progress. Like, that again, managing your time and stuff. As you get better, you flip the switch and your mind starts, well, I've got a whole day to work on this. Normally I only get 2 hours. I've got a whole day that I could do 10 concepts, whereas like junior design will probably like very much like focused on that thing and maybe spend the whole day doing one thing. And I think it's good to think like that as for progression.
All right, let's talk about your side hustle, because you mentioned a couple of these drink brands, including And Soda and Kokoro Gin. All this while running Analogue. Aren't you busy enough? Like, what draws you to these side ventures?
Well, in full transparency, I've actually I've sold one and decided to not continue one of the other ones. But it's been an amazing ride. I mean, I've been doing Cocorigin since 2015, and Ansoda I sold that back last year, and I think again, it's like we mentioned earlier, it's like new and shiny, and also like I was doing spirit brands for other people. And when you're a designer, you craft this beautiful thing and then you give it away. It's like giving a piece of your heart away, and your soul away. And it was kind of like, I'm doing it for these other people. Like, why can't we do it for ourselves and just put the money where our mouth is and do it? And full transparency, designing a brand is one thing. Getting it to market, distribution, all manufacturing, all the other stuff that comes with it it's basically the design gets you out of the gate, but it doesn't get you much further. And it's a lot of work. It was a crazy amount of work, but I had the energy, I had the appetite. And the main thing is I was learning, I was doing something different. And again, like I mentioned with curating the art exhibitions, we were getting more spirit brands because people had found out us. We were getting more challenger brands because we were launching. We just appeared from nowhere with Ann Soda, which is it was basically like a White Claw vodka soda in a can before White Claw was a thing over here in England. Um, so we kind of just hit the timing right with the market, with the idea, and the supermarkets were screaming for it. So we rushed production and got it out into the wild, and then spent the next kind of 3 years growing and building it. And like I said, I sold it to a company over in Australia. Um, but yeah, I think it's easier when you're younger. I would say, I'm like 45 now, nearly 46. So I think as you get a bit older, the energy, and I've got two kids as well, a dad, and your time becomes like less available. But when I was younger, I just had unlimited energy, unlimited energy, and just keep going and going and going. And I think the main thing for me was like learning at the same time. It was, and what I've learned now is it all comes back. Analog allowed me, by having Analog, allowed me some space to do it because I had finances, I had budget, I had, cash to invest in these things. And I also had other people working for me. So it did give me some time. And they were, I wasn't doing everything. Analog was at that point was probably 10, 12 people. Um, but yeah, I just loved it. Just absolutely love, like having to pitch to investors, like all these other things. It just takes you outside your comfort zone. And um, just yeah, for me, like what gets you out of bed in the morning? Like how do you keep going when you've done the same thing for so long? It's these challenges and opportunities. And people always say to me, "What's your next project, Barry? What's your next project? What's your next project?" And I don't have one at the moment, which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Full transparency. Sometimes I feel my days are a bit empty because I did work at so much pace and speed. And then other things, I think I don't really need the pressure. I don't really need the extra. I've already got enough. So it's a double-edged sword. But I think when you've got youth on your side, I think it's your world's your oyster. You can do whatever you want. You can. So what? You can. Obviously circumstances have to play a part in that, but you can do things on a smaller scale. It's just following your, basically, cocktails and toys is my life, and that is probably not going to change now at 46. It's probably going to be what's written on my gravestone. So I'm fortunate that my passions are my what pays the bills.
I love that. That'll be the name of your autobiography, Cocktails and Toys.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So going back to Analog, after 20 years of running it, what do you think actually makes a studio indoor?
It has to be people. It has to be, obviously, pipeline is everything, because without pipeline you can't pay the bills. So the number one thing is, obviously, you've got to build profile to build pipeline. You've got to have a presence. You've got to be a name that people are going to reach out to. And like, say, the pitching side of things, or however you do it, but you're going to have to secure a pipeline, because without money you can't do anything. Just simple as that. So you need revenue, and then you need people. Like, the people, what makes the place. I'm not Analog. Analog's the people that are there, and it's the team that we built. And then you know what keeps it going past that point is, we're fortunate. I think, if the works was much more boring, would I still have stuck it out? I don't know. I'm not sure. But we are so fortunate. Like, it's amazing when you get a phone call. It's like, "Oh, do you want to work on Stranger Things?" And yeah, sure. Like, it's immense. So for me, I think it's like, again, it's like what drags you out of bed in the morning. We're still fortunate that we're getting, like, great opportunities. And I think I guess consistency has to play a part in it, doesn't it? If you keep flip flopping and like we're now this and we're now that, or we're changing this or we're changing that, which again, if it's not working, then you've got to pivot. Like, realizing you've got to pivot is the number one thing to do in anything that you're doing. If something's not working, pivot as soon as possible, because that will save you money, time, and energy in the long run. But because we've been consistent and we've built a reputation, and it just, like I say, some days it feels like we haven't even started yet. It feels like there's still so much to do, and let's see how the future plays out with the AI revolution. Will there even be a world left when Skynet takes over in 3 years or what? Who knows? But we're fortunate that we get great work coming through the door. People respect us for what we do, and we respect our clients. We have fun doing it, and it still gets me out of bed in the morning.
Speaking of AI, because Rose asked this question a little bit earlier, what is your stance on visual creations with AI? How much or little do you use it, and what is your opinion on designers using it?
That's brilliant. It's a great question. I think it's a mixed bag at the moment. I still don't think it's kind of like really got anywhere close to where it needs to be. There's obviously people out there who can use it in ways that they've mastered some parts of it. For us, I don't. I think it's just a tool. I don't care whether someone's made it or not. But I'm not bothered about that as much. And if it speeds up workflow, I think that's great. But we work on things where we have to sign NDAs that say, and or like contracts that say that we can't use AI in our work, and um, I think it's yeah, we have to. Like a lot of the studios won't let us use it. Or what's happening now is like Firefly is acceptable because it's owned by the Adobe ecosystem, so there's no rights issues when it comes to the images and things like that. So there's been like an acceptance of it on a level, I would say. We work with Coca-Cola, who've developed the Physion system, haven't they, where it can actually repurpose their graphics into with Adobe. They can repurpose their graphics, but they're still asking us to do these massive global brand projects. And for me, people buy people. Do you want to sit there chatting to a robot or doing like an AI thing doing your work? I think for me, for writing, I think it's brilliant because again, I hate writing and I still write near enough everything myself, and then I'll put it through ChatGTP, or I built my own custom Gemini gem, which I have basically fed it all my LinkedIn profile. I've fed it everything I've ever written, and it's great because it's pretty close, and I still change it and edit it. But for writing and research, I think it's brilliant. For visual, I'd say we've been doing tests, like our new junior designer, like that's one of his assignments, is to kind of like takes a task that we've done in the studio and then try it on the different software to see where the gains are or where marginal gains are or things like that. But it's not integrating into our workflow where it's like we do use AI for this bit at the moment. It's more of a case of like, because when we're doing illustrations, sometimes you've got to comp things together to do the illustration. So now, like, you'd have to find a picture of, like, you go on, Shutterstock, or you go on like a stock library or a magazine, and you comp all these things into like a visual that you could then do an illustration of. And now you can say to, Nana Banana, oh, I need an illustration of a bird flying backwards doing this or whatever, wearing a top hat, and it does it for you. And that's great because we can use that as a foundation of like to still do our own bespoke illustration. So I think workflow wise, it will help. And we do motion, we don't do a lot of video. I see with video, I think it's going to be a really interesting area there where it's going to. I think video is probably the one of the main areas at the moment where it seems like it's making the biggest strides.
Ashna has this question in the chat. How do you research or work on pre-production before starting a motion project?
So how do we approach a motion project? Is that the question?
Yep.
I think so. Again, they're all different. So a lot of the time, like style frames. So you would start off by So you need a concept for whatever this project is. Here's the brief. This is what we want to achieve. So you would do like a mood board visual research, or like, actually you could, do visual research search. Then you would storyboard it. So you would do like a whichever way that is. Like sometimes we do it in Photoshop, sometimes hand storyboard, and then you do like test frames. So you do like test frames of that piece, and then past there, that kind of gets you, like we talked about doing mood boards for the jobs, it kind of gets you onto the playing field where you know what you're working with. But like for the projects we do, we're not doing long form animation. We're doing, I would say it's graphic. Motion graphics is what we do. So a lot of the times we might have already, what's good for us is we've already created the assets because we've developed a brand already. So we're thinking about, as part of that brand project, what are the motion principles as well. So does that make sense? Is that
Yeah, I think it does. Well, let me ask you this. What have been the biggest changes in the creative industry since you started, apart from AI and apart from, video? And which ones, what do you think are some of the changes that will matter the most to the next wave of emerging designers?
that is a great question. Well, like as I mentioned early on, when I first started, we didn't really even have the internet.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Like I was at uni, and I was literally cutting and pasting things and hand drawing typography, and then we had a Mac lab, and then the iMac came out. If people remember the one that had the like colored screen, it's probably like really back in fashion now with a colored like blue back to it. It's probably like super fashionable now, really expensive. But when I got one of them in my dorm room at uni, I was like, wow, like I all of a sudden, even though I've been doing graphic design for kind of like 3 years at college, and I was actually painting, like airbrushing and things like that. And then the Mac came along, and then the internet came along, and phones, and then now we talk about AI, but they're all just tools. They're all just another way of doing things. And I think it's adoption. I think like how might we're chatting on Discord now. I don't live in Discord. This isn't my native environment. And but the next generation have already adapted it, and they're fine with it. And I think it's that. I think it's osmosis again. Like my son's 10 and he's strapped to his iPad. He absolutely loves it. He's grown up with it. And again, it's like when kids come up to monitor and they try and touch it and move things. It's kind of integrated into it. I think it will be more challenging. And like I said, I think this idea of like AI stealing jobs, and in the short term, there will be, it's definitely tougher out there to find roles. But I'm hoping, like with the word analog, I think we are real people, and I think the value of real people, like my Instagram feed now, like I mentioned DJing, is full of people like playing music on vinyl again. They want to own something, they want physical, they want actual things, and it shows it's a human doing it. And I still believe that will still be so valuable. Again, I like, so human connect, like let's say communication skills, that should be the number one thing that people always work on, because without being able to communicate, you can't do very much. And I think it's just not being afraid to adapt and go with the flow. That's the main thing, rather than worried about what's this next thing, or what do you think the biggest change is. I would say it's being aware of the changes that inevitably happen, and just embracing them, and integrating them into what you do, or not, or choosing that's actually not what I'm going to do. People like David Carson, who's like famous typographer, I had fortunate to meet earlier in the year. Like he's getting a renaissance now because he still does everything by hand, and you can tell a human's done it. Brilliant.
You met David Carson?
Oh yeah, I met him in Mexico. I went to a conference in Mexico, and he was just there, and he actually hung out with us. He came to dinner with us on a couple of occasions, and yeah, and Staffan Sagmeister was there giving me
Whoa.
giving me sabbatical advice over breakfast and things like that. It was very, very cool, very, very cool. So yeah, like I said, I don't normally go to things. That's pretty much the only one I've been to, and it was privileged. It was amazing. So, and we're actually going to be there next year. It's called Paradise, so it's like a small event, but we're actually going to be doing an installation there next year, which is going to be exciting. So yeah, it was great to meet your peers.
Yeah, you were some heavy hitters there,
Yeah,
and to those of you in the audience who aren't aware of these pioneers in the design field, you got to educate yourself. Uh, you have to pay respects to your elders,
absolutely.
even though we are elders, or we're approaching that. But I don't want to think about that today. So, if going back to junior designers, um, If a junior designer told you they're still waiting for their quote unquote big break, what is the one thing you would tell them besides all the information that you covered tonight?
Waiting for their big break.
Yeah, they're still waiting for their big break.
Well, like, I guess the main thing I've kind of been championing is so I guess I would be asking, what are you waiting for? What do you need permission to do? Like, what is it you're waiting for permission to do? Because if you want to be a graphic designer, if you believe you're a graphic designer, you are a graphic designer, go and design a flyer for your local coffee shop or like any, I don't know what you're waiting, like what you're waiting for. That would be my first question. If that makes sense. Like, don't wait for permission. Like, just start, just do. I think obviously it's harder. It's hard to say that if you've got to pay the bills, you've got to do the other things. But um, it's hard without context, that question, because I don't understand how far you are on the journey and what you're waiting for. But I would say keep doing, like keep doing projects, keep putting stuff out there, like, and then hopefully the wait time will shrink. I don't know what else to say than that. But without more context, if I was speaking to an individual and I had a bit more context, I'll be able to give a broader answer, a more defined answer on that. But if we're talking about being a designer, if you say you're a graphic designer, you can make a business card today that says creative director of your own studio. You can do that. No one's gonna tell you can't. And I think it's that sometimes. I think somebody, like, we always wait, we wait for these like certain things to happen to allow us to do the next thing. Even me personally, sometimes I procrastinate to the point where, if all the conditions aren't met, I'm not doing it. But sometimes, I think waiting is an interesting word.
Yeah. No,
I don't
I
wait
think
for anybody. I don't wait for anybody.
yeah, and I think if you're listening to this program and you didn't listen to any of it, if there's one thing you could take away from tonight's interview with Barry, is you don't need permission to go get it. Just do it. Nike's slogan is so spot on. And I used to print that out and hang it up all over my house to remind me, just do it. Don't come up with excuses. Just do it.
I think it's easy to make excuses. There's a lot of people can do it, and I think, if you believe in it and you're passionate about it, and you're pushing yourself all the time to be better, like, that's the main thing. Is like, if you're waiting and what you've got isn't getting you what you've already got isn't getting you what you want, then keep pushing to get to the point where you do get what you do have enough to get what you want. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, we could keep talking for hours and hours. I want to be respectful of your time. You went over the allotted time with us tonight, but we are eternally grateful to you, Barry. And again, I just want to thank you for joining us tonight to discuss your incredible career journey. Be sure you connect with Barry on LinkedIn. Check out his company, Analogue. It's madebyanaalogue.co.uk, or on Instagram at the handle Made by Analogue. If you enjoyed this program, catch all the latest updates for the next Spotlight sessions and all the exciting content we have here in the Adobe Creative Career Discord by following the upcoming events calendar at the top of the server so you can see what's coming next. I want to thank my show producer, Catherine Chu, Lisa Temple, live moderator, Justin Roy, and the entire Adobe crew for sponsoring this program, helping to bring it alive. And thank you, Discord community, and to everyone who tuned in to listen to me, your host, Justin Bamforth. You can always catch me on Discord, LinkedIn, or my website, justinbamforth.com. If that's it, Barry.
One last point for me, actually. Yeah, one last point. If any of the people listening back to this are actually based in the UK and are part of the Adobe apprenticeship, we are looking to take on an intern. So, do feel free to reach out to me if you are part of it. You've already done the the project that allows you to access this, the self-initiate project thing. But yeah, no, we are actively looking for somebody to come and intern at Analogue. So, it'd be great to hear from you.
There it is, everyone. Well, look, Barry, you do the honors. You get to say goodnight to everybody for us, and then we'll call it a night.
Good night, guys. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the interview. And good night, guys.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. See ya.
Goodbye.
For more conversations with creative professionals, subscribe to the Spotlight Sessions podcast or check out the Adobe Creative Career Discord. Links are posted in the show notes.